All Chinese-specific terms, titles, units, institutions and cultural expressions are fully localized to fit American English. Military customs and daily speech. Original plot. Dialogue. Emotions and storylines are completely preserved. My fiancé showed up on what should have been our wedding day with a pregnant woman at his side. Emma. Sophia is my late comrade's wife. He died in the line of duty. She can't get through this alone. Not with a baby on the way. I'll marry her first. Once she gives birth and gets settled, we'll get divorced. It'll take no more than 2 years. Then I'll marry you. I watched him dote on Sophia tenderly. Then nodded. All right. We weren't married yet. He had every right to marry someone else. And I had every right to marry my fellow alumnus and senior colleague. The summer of 1994 was sweltering hot. I stood in the train station plaza, clutching 2 train tickets in my hand. James and I had been engaged for 6 months. He'd promised to take me to visit my parents during his leave. I pulled a small mirror out of my shoulder bag and checked my reflection. The girl staring back wore a white sundress with her hair tied in a ponytail, a smile tugging at my lips that I couldn't hold back. I'm Emma Carter, 24 years old, a technical soldier specializing in computer systems. James served in the Special Operations Battalion. Standing well over 6 feet tall, we were 7 minutes late for our first meeting. He came running in, sweat beading on his forehead, and saluted me without a single word. I nearly laughed right then, thinking what a genuine, down-to-earth man he was. On our engagement day, he gave me a red silk scarf and said we would tie the knot once he made major. Now he'd earned his rank, and our wedding was supposed to happen. I arrived at the train station and waited at our agreed meeting spot. 20 minutes passed. He didn't show. 30 minutes. Still no sign of him. An hour went by. Nothing. Then I saw him. He was walking with a pregnant woman. James rested his hand gently on her waist, shielding her protectively. My mind went completely blank. James halted when he spotted me, staring from about 20 feet away. Guilt, hesitation and a strange sense of resolve lingered in his eyes. He walked over, no longer calling my name like he always did. He first glanced softly at the woman beside him, then turned to me, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. Emma, we can't get married. This is Sophia Miller, David Miller's wife. David was killed on a mission. Sophia's pregnant, and she needs a legal last name for herself and a father for her baby. He spoke in a low voice, as if afraid anyone nearby would overhear. Emma. He paused, his gaze hardening with determination. I'll marry Sophia first. Once she has the baby and gets her life sorted out, we'll file for divorce. It'll be 2 years at most, and then we'll get married. I won't let you down. You understand, don't you? He spoke earnestly, and when his eyes fell on Sophia again, they were filled with pure tenderness. I watched him in silence. After the initial shock wore off, my heart slowly calmed. I didn't cry or throw a fit, it all felt pointless. He'd already made his decision. He was only here to inform me. If I argued, I would look unreasonable, like I lacked respect for a fallen service member. I stole a few glances at Sophia. Her hand rested on her slightly rounded belly, her posture meek and pitiful. She looked up at James now and then, her eyes full of reliance and gratitude. Dressed in a floral dress with her hair braided down her chest, she seemed gentle and unassuming. She turned to me too, her voice barely above a whisper. Sergeant Carter, I'm so sorry. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she spoke, as if she were the one wronged. Each drop fell onto her pregnant stomach. James panicked instantly. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a neatly folded handkerchief to hand to her. I recognized it right away. I'd given it to him just the month before. The genuine concern in his eyes as he watched her cry was unmistakable. It was far more than duty or obligation. He truly cared for her. My heart turned ice cold. James never spared me a glance, too busy fussing over Sophia. He'd never shown me this level of gentle care. Not once. He probably thought he was being noble, loyal to both his fallen friend and his fiancée. He expected me to wait in the prime of my life while he built a life with another woman and raised her child, then come back to me afterward. I nodded. Fine, I'll step aside. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. James froze, clearly not expecting me to take this so calmly. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. I handed him the box of green bean pastries I'd made for him, then turned and walked away. I'd never really cared for them anyway. He instinctively reached out to follow me, but Sophia's soft sobs stopped him cold. He hurried back to comfort her, every movement careful and gentle, and handed the pastries to her. I never looked back. The August wind was scorching, yet it felt icy against my skin. My eyes stayed dry, not a single tear falling. I wandered across the bustling train station plaza. Announcements blared over the loudspeakers. People hugged goodbye and reunited with loved ones. The whole world kept moving forward, while half of my own world had crumbled apart. I returned to my barracks after turning in the tickets. Night had already fallen. The next morning, I spotted that same box of pastries in a trash bin right below our office building. The entire box sat on top of the garbage, its paper wrapping torn open, the pastries crushed into crumbs and mixed with watermelon rinds and rotting vegetable scraps. I had no idea whether James or Sophia had thrown it away, but leaving it right outside my door felt deliberate. I shook my head. It didn't matter anymore. I'd put so much work into those pastries, picking out every bad bean and grinding the sweet filling by hand. I'd even measured the sugar perfectly to make them lightly sweetened, just the way he liked them. Now they lay discarded in the trash. Lucky for me, I'd never cared for lightly sweet treats. I'd just pick a different flavor from now on. I worked as a technical soldier on computer systems, a rare field within the Army back in the 1990s. No one else could cover my duties. The next day, I headed straight for the computer lab and sat down in front of the Great Wall 0520 terminal. The lines of code on the screen were exactly where I'd left them. I stared at the letters and numbers for a long moment, then kept typing right after Int A0. The keyboard clacked steadily. The room's air conditioner hummed, and the fluorescent lights flickered now and then. Without the stress of wedding planning and upcoming leave, I found myself more focused and driven than ever. Truth be told, I'd always felt anxious about marrying James. We never really knew each other. I'd thought he was a good man, and he'd probably liked my looks. We'd simply been paired up and gone along with it. I filled every minute of my day. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. for morning drills and breakfast, then stayed glued to the hard wooden chair in the computer lab until lights out. I only stepped away to eat and use the restroom. My superiors praised my dedication and told me I'd be nominated for the Army Achievement Medal at the end of the year. I smiled and thanked them. Keeping busy helped me push aside my troubles. I was only human, after all, and thoughts of him still crept in now and then. At lunch one day, braised pork appeared on the serving line, James's favorite dish. I automatically grabbed 2 portions. It wasn't until I set the plates down at the table that I realized he would never share a meal with me again. I sat staring at the 2 servings for a long time. Laughter bubbled up in my chest, and soon after, tears threatened to follow. That was when Lucas re-entered my life, or rather, he'd always been nearby. I'd just never let myself notice him. Lucas was 3 years older than me, a communications engineer, quiet and unassuming. He never sought the spotlight and always sat in the back row during briefings. Still, he was the most skilled technician in the entire division. We first met during an urgent technical project, when Command grouped several technical soldiers to build a military data transmission system. I handled coding, while he designed the system architecture. From our very first discussion, I knew he was different. He could finish my thoughts before I spoke them and anticipate every need I had. That kind of natural rapport can't be learned. It's innate. Our minds worked in perfect sync. Once the project wrapped up, Lucas treated me to a bowl of Lanzhou beef noodles at a little diner just off post. He ate slowly, long after I'd finished my meal. I laughed and teased him. "You eat so slowly. That wouldn't fly during Army chow time." "This isn't formation chow," he replied, staring down at his bowl. "I just don't want this moment to end." I thought he was talking about the food at first. It was only later that I understood he meant spending time with me. Word got around that on the day I got engaged to James, Lucas ran 20 laps around the training field. As a technical soldier, he was never the most athletic. He ran under the blazing sun until his camouflage uniform was soaked through, then collapsed on the track, unable to get up for ages. He never mentioned it, And I pretended I never heard. There was so much I didn't know about him. Later, while cleaning the computer lab, I found an unsent letter tucked under a keyboard. Its opening line read, "Emma, your smile is like spring blossoms." It sounded soft and youthful, nothing like the confident, focused engineer I knew. After that, he kept his distance, and we only spoke for work. Now he was here again, as if by chance. He pulled out a chair across from me. "Got quite a bit of braised pork there," he said. "Want some?" I offered. "Thanks." Lucas smiled. He had fair skin and a warm, pleasant smile I'd never really stopped to notice before, or I'd refused to. This man, my senior colleague, was handsome. We were both graduates of West Point. I realized I must have been blind all this time. I smiled back. "Don't mention it. I accidentally grabbed too much. And I didn't want to waste it." James called me later that day. The phone rang while I was debugging a program, startling me. Very few people had my work number, and no one dared interrupt me while I was on duty. I picked up the receiver. "Hello, Emma. What are you doing?" James's voice came through the line. "Working," I replied flatly. He took a deep breath. "Sophia and I are heading to the county clerk's office for our marriage license tomorrow. Please don't misunderstand. In 2 years." "Congratulations." He fell silent, then tried to speak again. "Emma, I'm still on the clock. I'll hang up if there's nothing else." I set the phone down and went back to my work. The cursor blinked on the dark screen. I set breakpoints, ran the code, fixed errors, and repeated the process over and over. When I finally fixed the last bug and stood up that night, my hands were shaking. It wasn't grief, it was sheer exhaustion. I understood then why marrying James had always made me anxious. Being with him was draining. He never understood me. And his old-fashioned mindset meant I was always the one compromising. I walked out of the empty computer lab into the quiet hallway. A faint emptiness lingered inside me, but relief was the dominant feeling. Lucas appeared beside me. He glanced my way but said nothing. And we walked outside together. The motion sensor lights in the hallway flickered on and off as we passed beneath them. Once we stepped into the open air, he spoke. "I know everything that happened. Don't let it get you down. I'm not upset." I shook my head. "You bite your lip when you're troubled. I saw you do the same thing when you couldn't fix a program once you bit it until it bled and never noticed." "I was just thinking," I argued. He wasn't entirely wrong, but this time, I truly felt at peace. The next morning, Lucas handed me a thick stack of documents, a complete optimization plan for military data transmission systems. He'd pulled all-nighters for days to write it, and asked me to look it over. I flipped to the first page and knew instantly he wasn't just asking for feedback, he was sharing his most valuable work with me. He was keeping me busy so I wouldn't dwell on heartache. I read through every page carefully. His handwriting was neat, and his work was impeccable. He covered hardware architecture, software development, data protocols and error correction algorithms, accounting for every detail. The more I read, the more engaged and excited I became. He stood beside me, pushed his glasses up his nose, and smiled. He knew he'd helped. We began working side by side every day after that. He drew circuit diagrams at the terminal to my left, while I wrote code at the one to my right. We ate meals together, talked about work, and shared what we loved to do on leave. Now and then, he'd pause mid-work to glance at me, his eyes bright and clear, like the first sunlight hitting fresh snow on a winter morning, gentle and warm. My life grew fuller by the day. Thoughts of James felt like distant memories from another lifetime. I never heard much about James and Sophia's life after they got married. They held a small ceremony at the T auditorium, which I saw from afar during lunch. James stood in his dress uniform, Sophia in a red dress, surrounded by cheering soldiers. James smiled softly, and Sophia beamed, wearing just the right amount of shyness. Days drifted by. I stuck to my routine: computer lab, mess hall, barracks. Lucas showed up at the lab promptly each morning. We talked more and more outside of work. He knew my favorite foods, drinks and weekend plans, things I'd once only memorized for James. James called every so often. He never mentioned Sophia. Just asked what I was up to and told me not to overwork myself. I grew tired of his empty chatter and always hung up. Life was better without his interruptions. One night, Lucas and I were both working late in the lab. He finished a circuit diagram and turned to me. "Emma, do you remember our first joint project?" I nodded. "Of course. Why, back then, I kept thinking how wonderful it would be to work alongside you for the rest of my life." I stared at the blinking cursor on the screen, its rhythm matching the beat of my heart. After a long pause, I turned to face him. "Lucas, what are you trying to say?" He pulled a small red velvet box from his pocket, revealing a delicate ring inside. He told me he'd walked the entire downtown shopping district to find it, believing it's simple. Pure design suited me perfectly. His voice trembled slightly, but his eyes shone with sincerity. "Emma, I know the timing isn't ideal, but I'm terrified of waiting too long and losing you again, just like I did before. I love you, and I want to protect you for the rest of my life. There's no pressure to answer right away. Take all the time you need. I'll always be here." He set the ring box down in front of me, looking more nervous than I was, then quickly stepped away to spare me embarrassment. I picked up the ring. It felt cool against my skin and fit my ring finger perfectly. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind full of thoughts about Lucas. The way he'd draped his field jacket over my shoulders on cold late nights, his focused profile while drafting blueprints, the 20 laps he'd run on the day I got engaged. How he'd sat with me in the hospital hallway from dusk till dawn when my mother had surgery. He remembered every little thing about me. My heart felt like a plucked string, its soft tone lingering on. Lucas always made me feel safe and warm. I smiled, knowing exactly what I wanted. A month had passed since James and Sophia got their marriage license. A great deal had changed. My hard work earned me a promotion, making me the youngest computer team leader in the division. Lucas's communications upgrade project passed final review, winning the Army Science and Technology Award and an Army Achievement Medal. Lucas and I submitted our formal request for permission to marry. His application was written so neatly I joked it could be used as an official template. He replied that marriage was the most important choice of his life, so he'd taken extra care. Base Command approved our request quickly. On the day our paperwork was signed off, we returned to that little diner off-post for noodles. This time, Lucas ate quickly. I laughed and said he finally ate like a proper soldier. His eyes filled with tender affection. "I just want to marry you as soon as I can." We got our marriage license on a bright, sunny day. The heat still lingered, but neither of us noticed. The old county clerk's office building was plain and worn, with chipped floor tiles in the hallway. The clerk behind the counter wore a blue uniform and smiled as she wished us a happy marriage. We both wore our military uniforms for the photos. Lucas pressed his shoulder against mine, and the photographer kept telling us to lean closer. I noticed his cheeks had turned pink, handsome and a little bashful all at once. After the photos were developed, Lucas stared at them for a long time. "You have such a beautiful smile," he said. We headed back to our on-post military housing. He'd bought 2 pounds of pork belly and announced he was going to make braised pork for me. "You know how to cook this?" I teased. "I've been practicing for a long while," he answered with a grin. His practice paid off. The dish was delicious. He watched me eat. His eyes lit up with a warm glow that made me want to stay close forever. 3 days later, we held a small wedding ceremony at the Post Auditorium alongside another newlywed couple. We exchanged well wishes, but James was nowhere to be seen. Word spread he'd been sent out on a mission. Married life was far better than I'd imagined. It wasn't loud or passionate, but steady and peaceful. We joined morning drills together, went our separate ways for work during the day, and either worked late side by side or headed home early each night. He'd bring me a peeled baked sweet potato on his way home. When he pulled all-nighters, I'd make him a bowl of noodles topped with a poached egg and fresh green onions. One night I worked extremely late. When I got back to our home, the lights were still on. I pushed the door open to find Lucas sitting on the sofa reading, waiting for me. A pot of chicken soup simmered on the stove. He'd learned the recipe from Mrs. Thompson next door and let it cook all afternoon until the bones were tender. I took a sip of the rich soup, seasoned with plenty of ginger to warm me from head to toe. Tears rolled down my cheeks. Not from sorrow, but pure joy. I was so happy it actually scared me a little. Lucas dropped his book in a panic and rushed over. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said, wiping my eyes. "I'm just too happy." He brushed the tears away with his thumb. "Silly girl, I'm right here with you." One mid-October afternoon, I was debugging a program in the computer lab when James returned. He marched straight for my room and slammed the door open hard enough to make it bounce off the wall. I turned to see him standing in the doorway in his combat uniform, his military boots caked in mud. He looked gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes and cracked, dry lips like something vital had been drained out of him. His gaze held a tangled mix of anger, resentment, regret and accusation. "Emma Carter," he said in a low, gruff voice. I leaned back in my chair and met his gaze calmly. My composure only made him angrier. "You married Lucas?" "Yes." "When?" "Last month." "Last month." His voice rose sharply. "We hadn't even." "You were already married to Sophia by then." I cut him off. "Both of our marriages were approved by base command. Everything is legal and official." "Is there a problem?" James's face flushed bright red. His fists clenched so tight I could hear his knuckles crack. He took 2 steps forward, then froze, like a caged animal burning with rage and nowhere to release it. "You know why I did what I did?" he snarled, resentment thick in his voice. "Sophia was David's wife. David was my brother. I couldn't abandon her. I told you once she had the baby and settled in, we'd get divorced." I finished his sentence. "James, what do you think marriage is? It's just as sacred as this uniform. You can't pick and choose spouses, or end a marriage whenever it's convenient. Never mind what you put me through. Did you ever stop to think what would happen to Sophia if you left her with a newborn? You think you're being noble. You're just feeding your own ego. Do you want us to pin a medal of honor on you for this? You just don't understand." James's chest heaved with rage. "We're special ops soldiers. We're different from regular troops. We've seen combat. We've watched men die. David took a bullet to shield me. You'll never understand that bond." My heart softened a little. I could picture that scene, and I always honored fallen service members. "I understand your choice," I said firmly, "but if you make a choice, stand by it. Don't make 2 women pay for your decisions. If you're going to care for Sophia, do it properly. Don't make me lose respect for you." He stared at me for a long time. The anger in his eyes faded into dull defeat. "So you're with him now?" His tone turned sharp, and a mocking smirk tugged at his lips. "That desk jockey, he's a communications engineer." I corrected him. "A communications engineer," James scoffed. "Sits indoors all day drawing blueprints and writing code. Probably can't even hold a rifle steady. What kind of soldier is that?" I stood up and looked him straight in the eye. "I'm grateful I made the right choice when I did. I misjudged you. I never thought you'd be so narrow-minded. You're a major in special operations. You of all people should know every military across the globe is growing more technological and digital every year. Even the rifle in your hands was designed and built by engineers. Without people like Lucas, what would you accomplish? Engineers like him keep your communications running. They're the link between frontline troops and command. Without them, you'd be deaf and blind, unable to locate enemy forces. How many more lives would be lost without their work? I respect frontline fighters, and I know you can endure harsh conditions, but modern technology makes you unstoppable and keeps more soldiers safe. Special ops will rely more and more on tech in the future. I suggest you learn to adapt, or you'll be left behind." James's lips trembled. "At last," he spat out. "He's still just a desk jockey. So am I." I replied. "We were never a good match. That man you looked down on designed a new communication system last year that boosted frontline efficiency by 80%. Do you know what that means? 1 minute faster to relay critical intel saves countless lives. The base commander once said that desk jockey is worth an entire brigade." James's expression shifted repeatedly. He had no rebuttal. I picked up my water bottle and took a sip. We were engaged, but there were no legal vows or formal commitments. Love and marriage are choices. You chose Sophia. I chose Lucas. No one owes anyone anything. If you keep harassing me, I'll report this to base command. If you believe you're in the right, you can go too." James's shoulders slumped. Anger faded into deep regret. He lingered at the door, his mouth moving but no words coming out. then left. I learned later that James went looking for Lucas next. Alex from the adjacent office told me in secret that James cornered Lucas on the training field and argued with him for a long time. James said some terrible things, Alex said nervously. Called him a desk jockey. A coward. Accused him of stealing you away when you were vulnerable. They almost came to blows. I was furious and ready to confront James and report the incident. Lucas held me back and smiled gently, like warm autumn sunlight. Why are you smiling? I huffed. I'm happy you're standing up for me, he said. He came to see you, I asked. Lucas nodded. What did he say? Nothing important. It's almost chow time. What would you like to eat? I can't believe how arrogant and ignorant he is. Let's drop it. Lucas soothed me. His words don't matter. All that matters is you're here with me. But just having you choose me is more than enough. He reached up and stroked my hair softly. I wrapped my arms around him, and he pulled me close, resting his chin on top of my head. I heard part of what you said to James, he murmured. You stood up for my work, said my contributions are just as valuable as frontline soldiers. In that moment, I felt like everything I've ever done was worthwhile. The army is evolving. A lot of traditional fighters like James don't understand technical roles yet, but they will. Together, we'll build a modern military that stands among the best in the world. I already knew what James had ranted about on the training field, calling Lucas opportunistic, unmanly, a cowardly desk worker. Lucas never fired back. In truth, Lucas and I had known each other far longer than James and I had. Emma is too good for the likes of you, James had sneered. As long as Emma wants me beside her, I'm happy to be whatever she needs, Lucas had replied. That answer silenced James, who left frustrated and angry. Want me to teach you some sharp comebacks for next time? I joked. Ha. I think I'll pass. Lucas and I lived a simple, joyful life, and our careers flourished too. Another communications project Lucas led won top honors across the military region. My data system was adopted base-wide, and Command praised it as a prime example of modernizing the Army with technology. We shared a quiet smile, completely in sync. We had our own sweet little moments too. Every evening after work, we walked beneath the plane trees on post. Autumn leaves covered the ground, crunching softly under our feet. The days grew shorter, and streetlights stretched our shadows long across the pavement. We faced hard days side by side, and savored peaceful sunny days together. Ordinary, but wonderfully steady. Sophia gave birth to a baby boy. James doted on the child endlessly. I never knew if he saw it as penance, acted out of self-righteous sacrifice, or had truly grown attached to Sophia. He brought her meals, accompanied her to prenatal checkups, and rubbed her legs when she had cramps in the night. Sophia lapped up all the attention and called him Jamie in a soft, sweet voice. She thought this easy life would last forever, that James would provide for her and the child indefinitely. Then the truth came out. One day James was changing the baby's diaper when a fellow staff member stopped by. He glanced at the infant and commented casually, "This little one doesn't look a thing like David." It was an offhand remark, but it planted doubt in James's mind. He'd heard similar whispers before. He began to investigate secretly, checking the baby's birth records, Sophia's pregnancy timeline, and her whereabouts before David's death. What he discovered left his hands shaking. Sophia had already been 2 months pregnant when David died, and David hadn't returned home for 3 full months before his death. The baby was not David's. Rumors spread across the entire post in no time. James lost his temper with Sophia for the first time, smashing furniture around the house. The baby screamed, and Sophia huddled in the corner holding him. She dropped her gentle act entirely. Her face twisted into a cold sneer. "Who do you think you are?" she snapped. "Did you honestly believe I wanted to marry you? I was pregnant with another man's child, and you volunteered to play hero. Why would I turn that down? You wanted to play the hero and raise your friend's baby. Fine, keep doing it. This baby isn't David's," James said. "You're my husband now, so this child is yours. You have to provide for us. How could you do this?" James was furious. He raised a hand but couldn't bring himself to strike a woman holding an infant. "David treated you well." "Of course he did," James retorted. "He was a good man and a loyal friend. How could you betray him? He's a fallen hero. Sophia let out a loud, harsh laugh. Nothing like her former soft giggles. What has he ever done for me? I ran the household alone. I was sick and no one cared. I was lonely and no one checked in. He never sent me any money. The best thing he ever did for me was die. At least I got his survivor's pension out of it. James stared at her, veins bulging on his forehead, his fists opening and closing repeatedly. He finally realized how foolish he'd been. He'd left me for this woman, and now he was the laughingstock of the post. He filed for divorce, but Sophia refused. She demanded a large sum of money to agree to the split, an amount James could never afford. She dragged the process out, running to every superior to complain that James abused her and the baby. The scandal became public knowledge. James received a formal disciplinary reprimand. Command ruled he'd shown poor judgment and mishandled family matters, damaging the Army's reputation. He was stripped of his major rank. His closest friends separated from active duty soon after. His military career was shattered. He came to find me again in the spring of 1995. The plane trees were sprouting new buds, and the air smelled of fresh turned soil. I stood chatting with Mrs. Thompson at the entrance to our military housing, her small yellow dog lying at my feet in the sun. I wore a light green military casual uniform, my hair a little longer now and tied back. I'd put on a little weight, no longer gaunt like the summer before. James stood beneath an old locust tree at the gate. He'd wasted away, his uniform hanging loose on his frame. His cheekbones jutted out, and his eye sockets were sunken. He no longer stood tall and proud, like a tree broken by a violent storm. He froze when he saw me, then walked forward slowly, his steps heavy as if weighted down with sandbags. He stopped in front of me, his lips trembling. Emma. Mrs. Thompson awkwardly led her dog away, leaving us alone. Major Wilson. He flinched at the title. I hadn't heard about his demotion yet. His eyes were filled with pleading, regret and despair. I was wrong, he stammered. I never should have done what I did. Sophia is a terrible woman who tricked me. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have settled for a desk jockey. You deserve far better. He reached for my hand, and I stepped back. His hand hovered in the air before falling limp to his side. Sophia and I are divorced now. I'll do anything you say from here on out. Just give me one more chance. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. My life is yours. James's voice shook with grief and desperation. James, please respect yourself, I said coldly. There is no chance for us anymore. Why? He cried out. I only made one mistake, and I wasn't acting selfishly. I was helping a widow. I made a near mistake too. I almost married you, I replied. You didn't make one mistake. You chose to leave me. I'm grateful I didn't follow that path. Now that you regret your choice, you expect me to run back. This isn't making amends, this is harassment. You're a soldier. Don't make me lose all remaining respect for you. I'm not harassing you. I just don't want to lose you. I'm already married, I said firmly. I have a home and a husband I want to spend my life with. Lucas. He took advantage of you. He's just a desk jockey. He doesn't deserve you. James's eyes turned red with rage. The only person who never deserved me is you. James, you abandoned me for a lie. Lucas would never leave me for any reason. He puts me first, shares my troubles and my dreams. I am happy. If you bother me again, I will not be polite. All strength drained from James's body. His eyes were red, his lips and hands shaking uncontrollably. Emma, I'm truly sorry. Then leave me in peace. You'll only make me dislike you more. He stood there, trembling violently, before finally walking away. That evening, I was cooking in the kitchen when Lucas came home. Oil sizzled in the pan, and the aroma of sautéed green onions filled the room. He slipped off his boots and wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. How was your day? Fine, except James came by to see me. His body tensed for a moment, then relaxed. He came again. Yes. He said he's sorry and wants me to go back to him. Lucas said nothing, just held me tighter. I turned off the stove and faced him, looking into his worried eyes. Lucas, listen to me. I'm not going anywhere. You are my husband, today and always. His face lit up, bright as a full moon. He pulled me into a tight embrace, and I could feel his heartbeat against mine. He buried his face in my hair. I must have done something wonderful in a past life to be blessed with you. I laughed. I half expected a formal military-style vow. Dear Mrs. Carter, I humbly request to walk through life with you until our final days. Respectfully, Lucas. He laughed heartily, his eyes crinkling into happy half-moons. My husband was handsome, though his quiet nature made it easy for others to overlook him amid the rough and tumble of military life. But I saw him, truly saw him. Lucas's smile was like stars, endless and unwavering. Time moved gently onward. My days were warm and fulfilling, my work steady and successful. James called a few more times after that, but I always let Lucas answer. He would hold the receiver in silence until the line went quiet, then hang up softly. The calls grew fewer, once a week, then once a month, until they stopped entirely. Word spread that James was honorably discharged and returned to his hometown. The scandal with Sophia had ruined his reputation. Stubborn and set in his ways, he refused to learn new technical skills or keep up with the army's changes. As years passed, younger, more talented troops joined the ranks, and it was time for him to leave. Do I hate him now? Love faded long ago, so hatred faded with it. I can barely even remember what he looks like anymore. He was just a stranger who crossed my path. Every choice in life comes with a price. James made his choice, and I was the cost. I made my choice, and Lucas was my reward. It was never just bad luck, it was fate. Lucas had waited for me all along. I'd simply been too blind to notice. I'm forever grateful I finally turned around and saw him. We had a baby girl. Lucas says she looks just like me, with big eyes and 2 dimples when she smiles. Our little girl waves her chubby hands as we laugh, giggling along without understanding our words. My work is rewarding and meaningful. My life is filled with joy. Hey there, could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 1 to 10. Please, I am begging you. It really means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit follow.